Well, so this past weekend was crowded. We have the areas that are popular, or we could call the hot spots. Fred Howard Park was busy. Dunedin Causeway, very busy. Honeymoon Island had to close down. Once it's 4,500 people. Clearwater Beach, of course, was very busy. Paso Grill Beach and some of those other South County beaches in Treasure Island, Sunset Beach, and some of those areas. We saw a lot of people, and we're very thankful for it, and we thank you all for doing it, of using the dashboard that we have to look at beach openings and the areas that are too populated when we do have to close them down because of density in the parking lots. We had over 50,000 people that used the dashboard over the weekend. Last weekend we had 166,000 hits on the dashboard. And we really expect this weekend is going to be very busy, although you wouldn't know it by the weather out there today. But Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday are predicted to be very nice. The weather is going to be great, so I'm sure it's going to be busy. So my suggestion, recommendation to you is to get to the beach early. If you don't get there early, you run the risk that the beaches are going to be full. What we're really trying to do is redirect people to the open area. But when we reach a point, especially in certain areas where there is no open beach, then you're going to get turned away, because remember, it is not business as usual. The order from the county commission is the beaches are limitedly open, and there is a density capacity, and when people can't appropriately distance, when they can't stay 6 feet apart and you can't have the groups of less than 10, then we are having to close down those beaches because the order can't be complied with. So I really think that this weekend is going to be busy. It's always busy on Memorial Day, but this is going to be exceptionally busy because a lot of people still haven't been able to get to the beach or haven't had their fill of going to the beach. So again, we will be out there. We'll have about 300 law enforcement officers throughout the county, from the north part in Tarpon Springs all the way down to Fort DeSoto. But our purpose in being there is to make sure that you have a good time, that you do it in a healthy way, and that we comply with the order. So this is going to be a information, education, guiding effort, and the reason why we're out there. But I would expect that there are going to be closures. So if people don't get there early, don't be disappointed, because we're telling you that it's going to reach capacity in certain areas.
And just on that same note, any indication of what hotel bookings look like for the weekend? Is it going to be more of a typical Memorial Day weekend in Pinellas?
Well, I know that the county's tracking that, and maybe the administrator can talk about that a little bit. We're definitely seeing an uptick, and of course we get that information and they're sharing it with us. I know that Clearwater's also looking at the bookings on Clearwater Beach. But there's definitely been an uptick, but the last word is there's still room. So I don't know, Barry, if you got any more information.
Well, there is an uptick in hotel bookings. The interesting piece is there is a slight uptick in the number of flights coming in and the passengers going through security, at like Tampa International. So, a lot of it is day trippers or people that are coming over for the weekend and driving around from around Florida. That's certainly not all of it, but that is a big piece of it. But yes, there's definitely an uptick in the hotel bookings.
I can tell you from talking to people out there this weekend, I was out there Saturday and Sunday, a lot of people from Orlando, and a lot of people taking that drive over. As we know from the website that a lot of the hits are coming from eastern Hillsborough County. So there are a lot of people that are driving into the area for the day.
You talked about bars a little bit, and if you could just repeat that. So bars are still not allowed to be open. There seems to be a little bit of confusion also when it comes to bar seating within a restaurant. Can you break that down for us?
Sure. So if a business is a bar, they sell alcohol. It's kind of like a dance club. They're not a restaurant. They're really not selling food. It is your typical bar, maybe even some sort of a pub. But the way that it's defined is that bar is a place where more than 50% of their sales, more than 50% of their gross proceeds is from the sale of alcohol. So if a place is selling alcohol, but they're also selling some sort of snacks, potato chips, then if it more than 50% is alcohol, then it's not a food place, it's not a restaurant, it is a bar. And every one of those places has to remain closed under the governor's order. So within locations though, and it can be anything, it can be from a Chili's to a TGI Fridays to any other place. There are places that have bars, and if they are selling alcohol at that bar, then that also cannot be open. So it's two different things, two different parts of the order. One is a place that is totally a bar, more than 50% proceeds from the sale of alcohol. They can't sell anything at all. Okay, is that they're under their license, they can't sell any liquor at all. If a place is a restaurant and is licensed under Chapter 500 or 509, then they can operate and you can have on-premises consumption. But at the bar area within the restaurant, is nobody can be seated at that. So it does get complicated. There's a lot of nuances with it. But if you have a place within a restaurant and it is a countertop, you'll see this in various places. You can see them at Panera Bread, at Einstein Bagel, and those places where you see these countertops. Well, if that happens to be in a place that's a restaurant that's also selling liquor, people can be seated at that. So the only prohibition is for people sitting at a bar area within a restaurant where alcohol is being served. I know it's a lot, I know it's confusing, but that's the framework under which we have to operate.
So Sheriff, at the beginning you sort of said, if you're not this, then you're good to go, but just some clarification on a couple hot items. Dance classes, art classes.
Sure, it's no problem. Again, the only thing that can't operate is a place that sells alcohol where more than 50% of their sales are from alcohol. Everything else is good to go.
So there's some confusion also as far as sporting events. 25% capacity sporting events are allowed to go on in the state of Florida. Is that true? Is that not true?
That's what is in the Phase 1 guidance and recommendations from the task force that the governor has adopted, because he says that all Florida counties are at full Phase 1. So as it relates to sporting venues, it does say that they can operate, and it's at 25% capacity. There's also another provision that has to do with large venues, and some of those large venues, they can be at 50%. So if it's a sporting venue, I would say certainly Raymond James Stadium would fall within that category. Amalie Arena would fall into that category. According to the order, they'd be at 25%. But you could take another large venue location, and that would be at 50. So, and that probably has to do with dance halls and those kinds of places.
And it defines it as professional sports.
Correct.
So the Phase 1 guidance the county put out today included movie theaters. The governor on Friday said that movie theaters are not okay, but drive-in theaters are fine. Is there a discrepancy there? Is someone misunderstanding the guidance?
Well, we're reading the order, and the order says we're in a full Phase 1. Nothing within the order restricted movie theaters. Didn't restrict bowling alleys either. But that was what we heard the governor say in his press conference. So it didn't come out in the order, and all we can do is interpret the order and apply the order. The order was real clear that under a Phase 1, movie theaters, bowling alleys, those types of venues are allowed to operate using the 50% capacity and the social distancing requirements.
So just to be clear, is that Executive Order 20-123, and I'm quoting from it. It says all Florida counties into full Phase 1. So that's what the order says. It was signed by the governor on Friday. It took effect today, bringing all Florida counties into full Phase 1. When you look at full Phase 1 under the task force report, is that it specifically says that movie theaters are permitted to operate. So all we can go by is what the words say on paper, and that is all Florida counties in full Phase 1. And it specifically says movie theaters are part of full Phase 1. So as long as that's what it says, we're trying to be fair, we're trying to be consistent, we're trying to look at the literal wording and to implement this in the way that it seems that it's intended. So we're doing the best we can, as we always have during the last couple of months with this, and looking at the words that are on the paper and trying to apply it.
And this is the governor's step-by-step plan for reopening. And on pages 19 through 22, it discusses in great detail Phase 1 and what is included within that.
And just a sort of a rhetorical question, movie theaters may be allowed to open according to the order, but certainly the businesses can choose to stay closed at this time. So
Anybody can choose to stay closed if they so choose.
And some have. Some restaurants have it open. But again, go back to this, and just so we're clear as we're talking about it, is that if that movie theater opens, people need to be 6 feet apart and no more than groups of 10. So they are limited in capacity to 50%. So because it's in that section of the order. So you can't pack a theater just like you can't pack the beach. It's not open business as usual, and everybody just go about how they were acting 3 or 4 months ago. There are some pretty significant limits on it, and people need to stay separated, and the density within each theater is limited.
So a lot of people are enjoying getting back into the gyms right now.
Mm-hmm.
What restrictions remain for gyms that are in operation?
Same thing as what we just talked about. It's a 50% the social distancing. There are specific sanitizing requirements regarding gyms. So that would same apply to dance halls, different types of classes that have been suspended, and different things like that, Pilates studios or whatever. So any of that, there's specific guidance regarding how they should clean equipment after every use, just being responsible, but they can operate under using the social distancing and the 50%.
So back to the beaches, Sheriff, you mentioned the beach capacity dashboard that folks are really enjoying having on the weekends. Is that something that is going to continue beyond this upcoming weekend, or what's the plan for that?
Well, the value of it to everybody, of course, is the up-to-date, timely, robust information. But in order to get that up-to-date, timely, robust information, it requires a tremendous number of people out there that are at all the beach access points, that are at the parking lots, and can convey the information so we can update it. The model we're using right now is not sustainable. We're doing it to comply with the county commission's order and to make sure that as we do reopen, that we don't see a resurgence as we're looking at the numbers. So I can see that we'd be using the dashboard periodically through the summer, perhaps again at the 4th of July and Labor Day, and maybe some times of significant events. But to do it all the time, it's not feasible because of the amount of people that it takes to provide the information to get that information out. But we'll look at it. Maybe there are some areas that we can use it for, maybe some of the heavier impacted areas where people are going. And I know it's valuable, and I'm glad we're able to provide that as a service. But we'll look at it and see if there's anything that we can do. But I can't see it being an everyday, all-day thing because we just don't have the resources to provide that up-to-date information all the time.
Municipal, county, state parks, what is their status and all this? Where are they at on it?
County's parks never closed. So the county's parks have been open. We still have the playgrounds closed, but and we don't allow the large venues, so under the picnic shelters and things like that. But the parks have closed. In terms of the state park, well, we know the Honeymoon Island opened with some restrictions. I don't know about others. And municipal beaches, municipal parks, there's a variety. So some of the municipalities, we kind of did a survey. Most of them are open, but some have chosen to remain closed.
All right, and finally, any changes to churches? I know there was really no actual restriction on them, but is there any further guidance for churches in the latest?
No, nothing at all. And the only requirement regarding churches is what has always been here, and that is, again, no more than groups of 10, and people stay 6 feet apart. But there's never been any restrictions on churches, so I would say it's status quo is the way it has been for the last couple of months. So we really appreciate everyone joining us here this evening, and I think this is good information for everybody, and we've been waiting for this day to be able to bring this to you so that we can return to whatever the new norm is as businesses reopen and people get back out into the community. But please remember to do it in a healthy way, in a safe way, stay 6 feet apart, no more than groups of 10, and get out there and enjoy the weather this weekend. Remember the beaches are going to be busy. Help us help you. Take a look at the dashboard and make sure you get to the places that there are openings, and we look forward to seeing everyone out there.